Hello, it's Neil from the group. It's mid-August 2023 and I am at Potterton, which is in the kind of parish of Belhaveney in Aberdeenshire. So this is a little visited recumbent stone circle. It's relatively easy to get to. You just have to come off the main road, up a dirt farm track, park and then walk over a few fields. You can see the fields being well ploughed and you can't smell that it's been well spread by the farmer, which I thought was really considerate. So there's nothing for access point of view, there's nothing to really climb over at all. It's just a walk. It's the last time I visited here, it was lovely golden corn that was growing, and it was a lovely pleasant walk to come through. This one's a little bit more difficult with a ploughed field. So as Douglas suggested, and as I've got into the habit of, I'm going to do a kind of topology, and for the best angle I'm going to get across this ploughed field and come up behind the recumbent to do that. So I'm behind the recumbent. Now the recumbent has undoubtedly been moved. This site's been not destroyed, but had a lot of reduction done to the stones and pushed over, and lots of stones gathered in them. But I'm looking over the stone that's pointing kind of south-southwest, and what you can see in the distance is the towers of Aberdeen, because there's the city just there. And if for anybody that's in the city or in the Shire, well, in the city rather, it's a 10-minute drive north to find this circle. And it's a lovely site actually. Once it gets the corns up and growing, it'll be lovely. So I'm just going to pan round. So that's Aberdeen city to the south, and coming around here, there's real steep hills going down here. That's the roof of a sort of farmstead and farm buildings there. Rolling hills down to valley and back up again. Pretty much a commanding view though, it's got to be said. It was a nice day when I started off. It's a wee bit windy if you're picking that up on the audio. The fields kind of level off towards the north a little bit, and up a wee bit of a rise to a mobile phone tower. Again, they're kind of, you know, that's going off to the sea because the sea's just off to the east here, and then down towards, you can see the sea in the horizon, and what'll come round to be the wind turbines, offshore wind turbines. So we are literally by the sea. It's a relatively commanding view, certainly from looking to the south. So that's the kind of topology we're working on. Because I'm not really seeing anything that the recumbent could really align with apart from the city, which of course wouldn't have been there, but it's a difficult kind of thing to kind of see anything obvious that we're aligned with regards to the recumbent, but I am absolutely certain that this has been moved and had some kind of reduction done to it. So let's go down to the front of them. The farmer has been relatively good with a kind of, you know, with a kind of plough relatively close to the stones, but leaving a kind of walkway. The last time I was here it was far more generous. And I think with these stones, we're in danger of them, the plough margins getting less and less and less. Like I was saying, for a quarters, I think it's become dangerously so. So I think a couple of the circle stones might fall. But the kind of documented history behind this circle is that I think back in 1840, there was the Reverend, whoever it was, noted that there was hearsay in the parish that there was 2 or 3 druical stones that were entire 30 years ago, so that would have been 1810. He went and had a look and he could only find one, I guess this one, and he said it was kind of like entire. And then 1909, we've got a photograph which is in great crowns of stone. Recommend you kind of download that and look at it. And if I back up to where that photograph might have been taken from, if you look at the photograph, there's a whole chunk of this recumbent being chipped off. Well, no chipped off, but blasted off probably from this angle. From this angle, the photograph shows, so if we're talking about number 1 stone, number 2 stone, number 3 stone is pretty much where it is from the photograph. So it's sat there in that position for the last 120 years almost. Number 1 stone, however, was on its side. It was like a kind of small recumbent. It was kind of upright. Had clearly fallen down to its right during at some point, and then has fallen back on itself. But the recumbent's taken some smack. It's taken a big bit of damage to chip off and left a kind of almost like a chair, which is ideal for a picnic, by the way, if you're here during the summer months. And then behind it had been reported in, I think, 1909, or maybe before then, there was the evidence of fairly long circle stones perhaps being piled up behind it. They've been gone, and what's now behind the recumbent is pretty much a field spoil of stone. So in Great Crowns of Stone, they pretty much look at 3 stones. Number 1, the west flanker, the recumbent stone number 2, and the east flanker number 3. But the last possibly 50 years, it's been pretty much as we find it. And before then, the only difference would have been number 1 stone was kind of like up on its side a little bit. But clearly, by the evidence of this chunk being taken off the recumbent, you can see what I'm talking about here. There's a kind of almost like a little shelf sat here. It's if I maybe get on top of that, it's a bit kind of higgledy-piggledy. Probably been broken off either by a farm heavy equipment, or might have been by weathering, but I suspect it's been by farm equipment just kind of moving the stones around. So let's have a look at number 1 then. Let's get back down. So quite a large stone. Hard to kind of picture which end would have been in the ground, because they're both kind of pointy-ish. And this is quite a substantial. You might have said this is the heavy end. This might have been the end that was in the socket, and given it, we kind of suggest that what, 1/4 to 1/3 of the stones in its socket. So maybe up to kind of here, maybe. And then the rest of it would have been up in line with the recumbent stone, in line with its neighbouring flanker, and then a circle round about. So a really commanding sight, this one. Would have been, you'd have been able to see it for miles. I mean, given the south view for this is, quite incredible. This would have been well known, and apparently it was. Apparently the locals used to call it the temple stones. And probably would have been in far better condition, maybe visited a lot more. But yeah, so number 1 stone on its side and then on its back. That's where it's kind of reclined to where we're now, and it's probably resting on all the years and decades of stone spoil that's been just piled up against this bit at the back that's covered in grass now. However, it was potentially a bit of a slab of a stone. It's relatively, maybe kind of 1/2 metre kind of wide. Its face, if that's pretty much how it was, it might have been damaged. Relatively flat apart from this kind of hollow, and no idea what the back of it was. But yeah, a decent flanker without a doubt. A decent flanker without a doubt. The recumbent is a bit of an odd one. Forget this stone at the back here, it's just something that's been piled up against it, but it is a monster. I mean, it's nothing like the length of old keg, sorry, but it's probably wider, and it's just as tall. If you were to put this bit back in using your imagination, it was a monster of a stone. The why I say it was probably moved is just because the kind of everything else has been moved. So this has probably been, and this kind of chunk been taken out of it. I suspect it's had some kind of like movement to it. Also, the kind of underside of it looks like it's been tried to get moved, or they've tried to dig away the foundations to kind of maybe roll it away or whatever, but been unsuccessful. It could be, again, I'm open-minded. I'm open-minded about everything, about where things could be and come from. So I'm quite happy that this has been kind of, you know, this is the original position of it. I'm happy that we could consider it as being moved as well. Number 3 stone then. Well, we'll have a look at, keep having a wee look at Recumbent coming round a little bit. It is, I mean, it's not the prettiest stone for sure. It has taken if it's taken a bash, it's taken a fair bit of bashing. And however, the back of it is fairly flat. Now, I had kind of toyed with the idea that maybe it had been actually rolled over. Maybe this was the kind of plinth that was on it and maybe been rolled forward, but at some point. But I suspect the sheer size of it would mean it's just almost impossible to move. But there has been some chunks taken out of it for sure. So number 3 stone, the east flanker. So this is one that's been pretty much lying in this position for a fairly long time. Quite a large flat slab of a stone for sure, more of a slab than number 1 is. Again, completely out of its socket, lying back. We could probably guess the way it's fallen that this is the bottom, and again a good sort of quarter of it maybe been in the ground. This has been the section that's been, you know, south facing. Again, fairly flat. Maybe some kind of damage done to the top of it though. A bit pointy though, a bit pointy. And apparently, I think this is one of the stones that's maybe got a couple of cup marks on it, but it's either one of the flankers have got cup marks on it, but unfortunately on the underside of it. The stones here have been, by great crowns of stone, essentially been discounted as field spoil. There's nothing that big I can see, and I'm not going to go raking about under all this grass cuttings for anything. But there is certainly stones right along this whole section, and unsurprisingly the farmer's just been filling it in as they found anything. But yeah, so Potterton's a bit of it's a lovely site to visit in better weather when there's corn growing for sure. It's a relatively easy one to get to, relatively easy one to tick off if you're trying to do a kind of list of them. But yeah, it's a bit of a curiosity one because it's, again, such a commanding site. Since a commanding location, it's a real shame. It's almost heartbreaking, isn't it, when you come to these sites and you think, I can kind of picture, if you kind of pictured this as being a kind of tire bagger or a Easter Quarters or a old keg type circle with maybe more complete, you think to yourself, this would be a real, again, people would probably pay to come here. So it's a real heartbreaker, but it is what it is. Definitely worth a visit, definitely worth a wee walk through the fields to get to. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed that, and thanks very much.